Good evening, welcome. If you do have a mobile phone, if you'd like to put it on silent, please, thank you. Right, a massive welcome back to Mark Devlin with free will, consciousness, consent and the corporate music industry. Popular music, played on multiple radio channels throughout the world, 24/7, played in shops, in advertising for our entertainment maybe, or entrainment, maybe not. Mark Devlin, long-time DJ, with his intimate links to the music industry, awakened to the fact that the industry's involvement in the mind control programme, going back many decades, is making us spellbound. Possibly one of the many modes of corporate control aimed at humanity. Let's find out a bit more. Please welcome Mark Devlin.
Thanks, Rob. Evening, folks. Sorry about the technicals. I'm the least technically competent DJ that you'll meet. I'd still be playing vinyl if I had any choice in the matter. But we got over it. Some of you may have caught me here last year. I did my first talk at New Horizons in September last year, and I was talking all about the various manipulations of the mainstream music industry, mind-controlled artists, dark occult symbolism, and all the rest of it. And this talk is a significantly overhauled version of that, with a lot of new content which I've not presented before. So this is something of a road test for some new stuff. So it's going to be a new experience for me as well. Anything could happen. But what led to the overhaul of the content that I now intend to present was the process of writing the book that I'm currently researching. It's going to be called Musical Truth. And I started writing it last year when I had the idea of bringing together all the stuff that I'd learned about the hidden, unseen side of the music industry and all the various manipulations that go on. And during the course of writing it over the past several months, it's already turned out to be a very different book to the one I had in mind. It was originally going to be a kind of step-by-step overview of all these things that are getting done. And as I continued to research it, it coincided with me gaining new understanding of these other subjects: free will consciousness, consenting and contracting, and also natural law. And as the months went by, I began to see how the various skullduggery that's going on in the music business was tied in with these eternal, universal concepts. And I've tried to bring them all together to show how actually it's all linked and it's all ultimately connected, although it might not be apparent at the start. So what I'm going to attempt to do with this talk and with the book when it comes out is show how all this stuff fits together. And one of the early things that I came to an understanding of was natural law, which is known by many other names. Some people refer to it as universal law, it's known as cosmic law, it's known as the law of cause and effect, consequentialism, causality, many different names for it, but it's always the same concept. It's the moral code of the universe that was set into place by the creative force behind the universe, which many people would choose to call God. Again, it doesn't matter what label you put on it, the concept is still the same. And it's this idea that we are bound by morality, and we have the free will choice in our actions and our behaviours as to whether we're going to take right actions or wrong actions. And these are concepts and rules and laws that are set into place by the creative force. It's not down to any individual human's perception or interpretation of what constitutes right or wrong. There are right actions built into this reality, and there are wrong actions, and we have the choice as to which way we go with it. And the central tenet of natural law, when you really boil it down and you really simplify it, can be summed up by this brilliant phrase: do no harm, but take no shit. It can be expanded. The first aspect of it is known as the non-aggression principle. It's an expression of the sacred feminine which occurs in nature everywhere, and it's the do no harm bit, and it basically entails the fact that you should not undertake any action which causes harm to another living being, another human or any other sentient being. The second tenet of it is the take no shit bit, which is the self-defense principle, the expression of the sacred masculine, which occurs everywhere in nature, and together, do no harm but take no shit, form these two central tenets of natural law. It really is quite simple. Do not treat others in a way that you would not wish to be treated yourself. And this is something that I remember getting drummed into me by my dad when I was very little. And he used to say to me, you know, just don't treat others how you would not want to be treated yourself. And often you hear an expression of that aspect kind of flipped around, which is treat others in a way you would wish to be treated yourself. But I've heard the flaws behind that expression highlighted on a few occasions, one of them by Max Egan, who you might be familiar with, great Australian researcher. And he exposed the flaws in expressing it that way around by saying, imagine you had, let's say, sadomasochistic tendencies, and you had, you know, these kind of sexual preferences, and you liked various things being done to you. You might, therefore, undertake these behaviours on somebody else because it suits you, but you would not, that person would not want that done to them, so you're violating their right, and the do no harm bit doesn't work. So the most effective way to get that idea across was expressed here by Mark Passio, another great researcher who really breaks down natural law into an easily digestible, very easily understandable form. And he expressed it this way on one of his podcasts, on his What on Earth is Happening radio show. And I'll just go through it. The bottom line is, if you wouldn't want a person doing a certain behaviour to you, don't do it to another person. The end. People can't get that simple message. That's the golden rule in the apophatic sense, expressed in the negative. Do not do to others what you do not want done to you. When you say it in the negative, it's way more powerful because everybody knows how they don't want to be treated. And there's another statement here from another one of the podcasts which expands on that idea. I do quote a lot of Mark Passio's work because I do feel that he puts this information across in a way that everybody can understand in a very unambiguous way. It's never about the individual messenger, it's always about the message that they put across. This information is eternal and timeless, and we have people in this current generation that are putting this information out there. When this generation is gone, it will be somebody else's time to put out this information. But either way, the message is eternal. And this is just one particular messenger putting it across. And so he's expanding on the idea here. The solution is so simple, always has been. Don't treat others in a way you would not want to be treated. Say it that way, it becomes real unambiguous. It's so simple, it's almost stupid. It can't get any simpler than that, and yet humanity has proven we still can't grasp it. And I feel it's worth reflecting on the type of world we would have if everybody were observing these tenets of natural law, and particularly the one which states, do no harm. Do not treat others in a way you would not wish to be treated yourself. I think the experience that each individual would have would be significantly improved, and the overall experience that humanity would have would be very different to the one we're currently experiencing. And these laws, natural law, applies on both an individual microcosmic level and on a collective macrocosmic level, in terms of the experience that all of us have collectively. And it's worth reflecting on the current state of things that we have in the UK, where we have so-called leaders who are thieves, liars, criminals, and child rapists, and are into every manner of filth and depravity and negative behaviour that you could imagine. And these are people that are supposedly running our country, and you could throw the monarchy into that as well. These are establishment figures that we are supposed to look up to and respect. And look what we've got, look what they're into. And could that be a result of the lack of care that there is on a collective level and the lack of moral behaviour that there is on a collective level, because people don't care, because on the whole most people don't give a shit about what's going on? That's why we've got what we've got. And if we were all on a collective basis to change our attitude and change our behaviours and our thoughts in line with the moral code of the universe, I think the way that things will play out in reality would be very different. This stuff is all tied into some specific examples of stuff that goes on in the music industry. It might not seem like it at this stage, but as we go forward, I'm going to show how it is all linked. Natural law, I came to understand, is also tied in with free will consciousness. And I came to realise that humans are unique among sentient beings in being gifted with this. We have the choice to make moral decisions as to our thoughts, behaviours and actions, and there are karmic consequences that are dished out in accordance with the choices that we make. So if you make choices in your behaviour which are in defiance of natural law, you can expect the way it plays out in reality to be appropriate to the choices that were made. So free will consciousness also ties in with these tenets of natural law or universal law. And I think it's worth reflecting on what would happen if there were a control system in human society that understands how these laws work. They understand that all humans are bound by it and reap the karmic consequences for the decisions they make within it. And this control system sought to use this knowledge to its own tactical advantage while keeping the vast majority of the human population in complete ignorance of it and of how this all works. And I think that is the scenario which we currently have in human society and have had for a very long time, far too long. And also, what would happen if this malevolent control system were to gain control of the entertainment industry, and specifically the music industry, and apply its dark mind control occultic methods to it? And I think that's what we've got, and that's where this ties into stuff that's going on in the music industry. And I feel the best way to demonstrate how these concepts can be applied is to look at the phenomenon known as predictive programming, which I've got into in previous talks in quite some detail. So some of the stuff we're going to see here might be familiar to anyone that's seen my previous talks, but I do feel this offers the best illustration of how these things all come together. I'm sure most people are familiar with the concept of predictive programming and what it constitutes, but the definition of it is that it's the practice of encoding visual clues and symbols into works of popular culture aimed at large audiences depicting a real-world event yet to happen or currently happening. It recognises the influence of the subconscious mind on an individual's psyche, and images are subtly conveyed in encoded forms, foreshadowing events which are known to be coming. Because ultimately, the individuals and the organisations placing the predictive programming imagery into movies, TV shows, cartoons, stage shows and music videos are connected to the ones that pull off these events that they're foreshadowing. So let's get into some examples. The best example of predictive programming in popular culture always comes from 9/11. And when you look into it, there are several hundred examples which researchers have cited of prior knowledge of what was going to happen on September 11th, 2001 in the years leading up to it. There are so many examples, I've just picked a few here to make the point. This one is from Independence Day, and there's the countdown on a clock where the camera just focuses on a split second on the 9/11/01. So we've got it down to the year that the event happened there. Another classic is from the first Matrix movie, released 1999. We have the character Neo's passport, and there's an expiry date on there of the 11th of September 01. So again, it's right down to the specific date on which it happened. One which I came across quite recently is the first Back to the Future movie from 1985. And there's a whole host of clues here foreshadowing the events of 9/11, 16 years before it happened. There's a scene of a clock here on the clock tower, which is a very central part of the movie's plot, where you can see that the hands are pointing to the 9 and the 11, and the researcher has highlighted the fact that we have a depiction of 9/11 there. There's another scene where the DeLorean car shoots off into the future and disappears off the screen, and it leaves a load of flames in its wake. And you can just about make out there on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a sign which is illuminated on the side, which is highlighting a 9, and the two streaks of fire in the centre of the screen make up the 11, so there's another depiction of 9/11 going on there. Elsewhere in the movie, this one has to be flipped around, inverted, but when you get to understand the methods and the symbology favoured by this particular control system, you realise that they love to invert things and do them backwards and do them upside down. And this researcher has highlighted the fact that when you turn this particular sign upside down, you get the 9/11 again. And isn't it interesting that the shopping mall in Back to the Future was called the Twin Pines Mall? And this one is a bit of a mind blower because it could so easily be missed. There's this character that is talking about saving the clock tower to the two central characters, and if you look right above her head on the right hand side on the shop sign there, you could just about make out the familiar all-seeing eye, which is one of the favoured calling cards of the Illuminati inside a pyramid. Who noticed that at the time? But there are some very vigilant researchers around right now, and nothing gets past them. And the minute a symbol goes into any work of popular culture now, there's somebody to pick up on it and put it into a YouTube video. Getting into a few music industry examples, again staying with 9/11. This is the Amazon entry for the release of Jay-Z's landmark album, The Blueprint, which just happens to have been released on September 11th, 2001, as you might be able to see from the top of the screen there. And Jay-Z, of course, as I've highlighted in previous talks, is a major player or a major puppet or stooge of the control system that we're talking about with reference to the entertainment industry. He's been doing their bidding for a long time, as so much evidence shows. Here's a sleeve from Michael Jackson's Blood on the Dance Floor album. This is rife with symbolism when you know what you're looking for. You've got the black and white checkerboard floor there, as seen on the floor of Masonic temples, representing base consciousness and the polarity between night and day, light and dark, good and evil, all of that. You've got Michael Jackson in a blood red suit, one of the symbolic colours related to Saturn. Blood on the dance floor has been taken to be a phrase with reference to Masonic ritual sacrifice, with blood on the floor of the Masonic temple, bringing in the legend of Hiram Abiff and the three ruffians that are said to have killed him in Solomon's temple. Just a Masonic ritual legend there. And in the background we have a city landscape that looks very similar to Manhattan, the Manhattan skyline, which is starting to crumble to dust. And this album came out in 1997. That would appear to be another indication that those that control the entertainment industry were in the know as to what was going to come on 9/11. Absolute classic, this one, from a very little known hip-hop act. They haven't done too much since then, I wonder why that could be, called The Coup. And you've got the two characters from the group there. One of them is drumming, the other one has a remote control explosive trigger device. And they're in front of a depiction of the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center as they start to crumble to dust in exactly the same way that they did on September 11th, 2001. This album sleeve was released in June 2001, so a few weeks before the actual event. And as soon as the events of 9/11 occurred, this album was promptly withdrawn from the market, and it was replaced by another sleeve which was completely different. And Boots Riley, the guy with the afro there from the group, was asked about the sleeve design, which evidently he had some say in designing, and he said that it was supposed to be a statement against capitalism in the US, and so that's why they depicted the Twin Towers coming down. But I think there could be something else going on there.